200 years ago, in the salt mines beneath the mountains near Salzburg, there was a small, strange piece of magic you could perform with a dead branch. You would take a branch stripped bare by winter, the kind of lifeless twig you would step over on a path without a second glance, and you would throw it down into the abandoned depths of the mine, into the dark, and leave it there. 2 or 3 months later, you would haul it back up, and it was no longer a branch. Every twig, every tiny offshoot, no thicker than a sparrow's leg, had been crusted over by the salt in the air, coated in thousands of glittering crystals. It came up out of the dark, looking like it had been carved from diamonds, shimmering, dazzling, impossible to recognize. You could not find the plain dead branch underneath anymore. It was buried in jewels. A French writer named Stendhal watched this happen in the summer of 1818, and it stopped him cold, because he realized he was looking at the most accurate picture he had ever seen of what happens inside the human mind when we fall in love. The branch is the person, just a person, ordinary, partial, flawed, the way all people are. And the crystals are everything we add, the perfections we hang on them, the depth, the meaning, the destiny we drape over a near stranger until we genuinely cannot see the plain branch underneath anymore. We look at them and we see diamonds, and we are completely certain the diamonds are theirs. I want to talk about those crystals, where they come from, why they always eventually melt, and what it means that the person you fell in love with may never have existed at all. Here is an image that will ruin falling in love for you in the best possible way. In the old salt mines near Salzburg, you could throw a bare dead branch into the dark, leave it a few months, and pull it back up covered in glittering crystals so dazzling you could not find the plain branch underneath. The writer Stendhal said, "That is exactly what your mind does to a person when you fall for them. They are the branch. The diamonds are everything you add." And the unsettling question hiding inside that beautiful image is the one nobody wants to ask. When you fell in love, were you in love with them, or with the crystals you hung on them? Stendhal gave this its own name. He called it crystallization. And in 1822 he wrote a whole book about it, simply called On Love. His definition is precise and a little chilling. Crystallization, he said, is the operation of the mind that draws from everything it encounters the conclusion that there are fresh perfections in the person it loves. Sit with what that actually means. It is not that you notice their real qualities. It is that your mind manufactures perfections out of almost nothing and hangs them on the beloved. A small kindness becomes proof of a vast and gentle soul. A passing remark becomes evidence of rare intelligence. Everything they do, the mind spins into gold, the way the salt spins a dead twig into a chandelier. And here is the part of his theory that should genuinely disturb you. Stendhal described a stage he called the second crystallization, and what sets it off is doubt. Once you begin to fear that the person might not love you back, or might not be all you hoped, you do not cool down. You heat up. The doubt throws the mind into a frenzy of even more intense crystallizing, piling on more perfections, raising the stakes until the person becomes more dazzling and more necessary than ever. This is why uncertainty makes infatuation worse, not better. The wobble does not break the spell, it thickens it. So, the intoxication of new love, the feeling we treat as the deepest truth we have ever touched, is in large part a private performance staged inside one person's skull. In those first weeks, you are not a witness to who they are. You are an artist, and they are your raw material. And the masterpiece you are painting is one you will later mistake for a photograph. Stendhal noticed something that explains why the people who are worst for us are so often the ones we want most. He said, Love has a stage he called the second crystallization, and it is triggered by doubt. When you start to fear you might lose them or that they are not what you dreamed, you do not lose interest. Your mind panics and piles on even more imagined perfections, makes them even more dazzling, even more essential. So, uncertainty does not cool love down, it pours fuel on it. The person who keeps you a little unsure is not more wonderful. Your mind is just crystallizing harder to cover the fear. We feel that frenzy and call it the depth of our love. Usually, it is the depth of our doubt. Stendhal saw what the mind does. A psychologist named Carl Jung tried to explain where the raw material comes from, why these particular perfections, and why we are so utterly convinced they belong to the other person. Jung's answer was that we are not inventing the image from scratch, we are carrying it already. Each of us, he argued, holds an inner picture of the ideal other, an image assembled over a whole lifetime down in the unconscious. He had technical names for it, the anima and the animus, but the core idea is simple and a little eerie. We walk around with a kind of phantom of our perfect partner already inside us. And when we meet someone who fits the outline closely enough, the whole image leaps out and lands on them. That is the instant we call falling in love. It feels like recognition. It feels like you have known this person forever, like they complete you, like some missing piece has finally clicked into place. But Jung's unnerving claim is that what you are recognizing is not them. It is your own buried image suddenly wearing a human face. You have fallen in love with a part of yourself projected onto a near stranger. They are simply standing in the spot where your fantasy is shining and you cannot tell the two apart. Which is why Jung said something that sounds almost cruel, but turns out to hold the most hopeful idea in this whole story. Real love, he said, can only begin after the projection ends. Only when the image is pulled back and you finally see the actual person standing there, separate from your dream of them, can you love the one who is really in front of you instead of the ghost you cast over them? Carl Jung had a haunting explanation for love at first sight. He said, we each carry an invisible image of our ideal partner, built up over a lifetime in the unconscious. And when we meet someone who roughly fits the shape, that whole image leaps out and lands on them. That overwhelming feeling that you have known them forever, that they complete you, that this was meant to be, is not really about them. It is your own inner picture, suddenly wearing a face. You fell in love with your own projection, which sounds bleak until you hear Jung's conclusion. Real love can only start once that projection fades and you can finally see the actual person standing where your fantasy used to be. But projections do not last. Crystals do not last. This is the part nobody warns you about, and it arrives sooner or later for everyone. One ordinary morning, you look across the table at the person you were certain was made of diamonds, and you just see a person a little tired, a little ordinary, chewing, repeating a story you have heard before. The shimmer is gone, and underneath it is the plain winter branch that was always actually there. Not bad, not a fraud, just real, just human sized. And almost everyone in that moment arrives at the same devastating conclusion. The love is dying. The magic is gone. And we have been taught by every song and every film we have ever absorbed that the magic is the love. So when the crystals melt, we panic. We decide we must have chosen wrong. We tell ourselves this must not be the one after all, because the one would never have stopped sparkling. And so, an enormous number of people do the only thing that makes any sense inside that belief. They leave. They go looking for another bare branch to throw into the dark, to feel the crystals grow again, chasing the shimmer from person to person. never once realizing that the shimmer was never coming from the person in the first place. They are running from the very moment that could have set them free. Because the fading of the projection is not the failure of love. It is the beginning of the only kind of love that was ever real. Here is the moment that quietly ends most relationships. One ordinary day, you look at the person you thought was made of diamonds, and you just see a person, tired, ordinary, human sized. The shimmer is gone. And because every song you have ever heard taught you that the shimmer is the love, you panic. You decide you chose wrong. You go looking for someone new to sparkle at, but you are running from the wrong thing. The shimmer was never them. It was the crystals your own mind grew over them. When it fades, you are not watching love die. For the first time, you are actually seeing the person, and that is not the end of the story. That is where the real one was always meant to begin. The person who said this most clearly was a psychoanalyst named Erich Fromm in a small, severe, beautiful book from 1956 called The Art of Loving. Fromm thought we had made a catastrophic mistake about what love even is. We treat it as a feeling, something that happens to us, that we fall into the way you fall into a hole by accident and with no skill required. And he drew a hard line between two things our language lazily blurs together. There is falling in love, and there is standing in love. They are not the same, and confusing them quietly ruins lives. Falling in love, Fromm said, is the sudden collapse of the walls between you and another person, and it is intense precisely because it is temporary. It cannot last by its very nature. He even suggested something brutal about it, that the sheer intensity of that early high might not be proof of how much you love each other at all. It might mostly be proof of how lonely you each were before. Two walls coming down feels like fireworks, no matter who happens to be standing on the other side. Standing in love is a different thing entirely. Standing in love is not a feeling you fall into, but an art you practice, a thing you slowly get better at, like music or medicine, demanding patience and discipline and attention and care. It is what becomes possible only after the falling is over. After the crystals have melted and the projection has been withdrawn and the fireworks have gone quiet and you are left looking at one real limited particular human being, and you decide not once but daily to know them and to care for them exactly as they are. Falling in love is something that happens to you. Standing in love is something you do. Erich Fromm said, we ruin love by misunderstanding a single word. We talk about falling in love as though love were a hole you stumble into by accident with no skill involved. And he warned that the intensity of that fall might not measure your love at all. It might mostly measure how lonely you both were beforehand. Two lonely people having their walls suddenly come down feels like fireworks, no matter who is standing there. Real love, Fromm said, is not the falling. It is the standing, not a feeling that happens to you, but an art you practice, like music. And it only begins after the fireworks fade, when you choose every single day to actually know the ordinary person in front of you. Falling is luck, standing is a skill. So put the three of them together, and a quiet, demanding truth comes into focus. When you fall in love, you are, to a real degree, not seeing a person. You are seeing crystals in Stendhal's image, a projection in Jung's The Collapse of Your Own Loneliness in Fromm's. The radiant being you are so sure you have found is partly a work of your own mind. And that is not an accusation. It is simply how the human heart appears to be built. The intoxication is real. It is just not yet about them. Now, it would be easy to hear all of this and curdle into cynicism. To decide that love must therefore be a lie, a chemical trick, a delusion we should be too clever to fall for. But that is the wrong lesson. and it misses the most important part of the whole story. The crystals are not nothing. The fact that you can look at another human being and see infinite worth, radiance, a soul you would reorder your entire life around is not a malfunction. It is a glimpse of something true. Your mind is showing you, in one overwhelming flash, what it would actually mean to value a person completely. The error is never in the seeing. The error is in thinking the work is already done, that the diamonds were handed to you for free, when really they are a preview of what love could build on purpose, slowly with the eyes open. Infatuation shows you the destination in a single dishonest instant. Love is a long and honest walk to get there. Does all of this mean love is just a delusion? No, that is the cynic's mistake, and it misses everything. The crystals your mind grows over someone are not nothing. The fact that you can look at one ordinary person and see infinite worth is not a glitch in the system. It is a preview. Your mind is showing you, in a single dishonest flash, what it would feel like to value someone completely. The illusion was never that the worth is there. The illusion is that it came for free, already finished. Infatuation hands you the destination as a fantasy. Real love is the slow, clear eyed walk to actually arrive. The feeling was not a lie, it was a promise you had not kept yet. And this turns the thing we fear most completely on its head. We spend so much energy dreading the day the magic fades as if it were a kind of death. But the fading is not love failing, it is your vision clearing. It is the moment the other person stops being a screen for your fantasy and starts being available to be actually loved as a separate, real, unrepeatable human being who was there the whole time, behind the glitter waiting to be seen. To be adored while you are still crystallized is, in a strange way, to be deeply alone. Because the person across from you is in love with an image you can never live up to and never agreed to wear. But to be loved after the crystals melt, to be seen plainly, ordinary and flawed and human sized, and to be chosen anyway on purpose day after day, that is the rarest and most substantial thing one person can give another. That is not the consolation prize you accept once real love is gone. That is what real love actually is. Everyone wants the diamonds. The diamonds were never the love. The love is what you do once they are gone. So go back one last time to that branch coming up out of the salt mine, dripping with light. It is genuinely beautiful. There is nothing wrong with the crystals, and there is nothing foolish about the people who are dazzled by them. We all are. To fall in love is to be briefly, gorgeously enchanted by a person of our own partial invention, and it may be one of the most human things we ever do. The mistake is not the enchantment. The mistake is believing the enchantment was the whole story and walking away the instant it ends. Because the crystals always melt. They are meant to, and what is left when they do is not nothing. What is left is the branch. The real one, the actual person, plain and particular and finite, who was underneath the diamonds the entire time. And you get to make a choice the dazzled version of you was never able to make because it could not even see them clearly. You get to look at exactly who they are with the glitter gone and decide to stay, to learn them, to love the branch. The person you fell in love with may never have existed, but the person standing in front of you once the shimmer fades finally does. And loving someone real, it turns out, is a far more remarkable thing than loving someone you made up. You only have to survive the melting of the crystals to get there. Almost everyone runs. The ones who stay and look and choose are the only ones who ever find out what love was actually for.